Okay, so what we were looking at yesterday is this whole discussion of, I mean, the specific case that was brought to us was that I'm able to provide a service to someone that for me costs less than what he would normally have to pay. And the question is, when it comes to paying me back, does he pay me back what it cost me, or does he pay me back what he would normally have had to pay had he paid out of pocket? So the specific example that we gave yesterday is that I have this Ravkav, I have the special card that I purchase for the bus line or for the train, and it lets me to take the train ride for 50 cents, let's say. And I let my friend use the card, but the fare without that special card would normally cost $1. So the question is, does he have to pay me back $1, or does he only have to pay me back the 50 cents? That's the question. Now, this could, of course, be applied to a number of different scenarios. And so we saw two different cases in the Gemara that seem to be used as analogies. One is more analogous to saying that you pay what the out-of-pocket expense of the person who provided you the service was. And the other opinion was that you give the person what he would normally have had to pay for the issue. The first raya we felt was a little bit confusing, but there was a case in Bava Metzia that he wrote that if a person damages a barrel, breaks a barrel, Gemara in Bava Metzia had said that on the day of the shuk normally costs 4, but the guy was able to buy it for 3, you have to pay him what the retail price of that object is. In other words, just because I was able to get something cheaper doesn't mean you only have to pay me what it cost me. If you end up damaging that object, you should have to pay me the retail price of what it would normally cost for me to get it. And this is the machlokes, is that when I spot you for an expense, for a service that costs money, do you have to pay me what it cost me to provide that service, or what you would normally have to pay for that service? Okay. So I think we were up to here. V'ra'inu b'shut yoru mishpatecha shekatav lahasig al psak zeh shel Rabbeinu v'herich dekeven dedemei nesiya hi k'fi ha'erech shel nesiya regila. And he says, so this rabbi disagrees with Rav Sharaga. He's quoting this person who's writing the footnotes, who's a student of Rav Sharaga, points out that another sefer called Yoru Mishpatecha, which is also written by a Dayan in Yerushalayim, disagrees with Rav Sharaga, and he writes that the Kaven the Demei Nasiya he kafi erech shel Nasiya regila. The cost of the transportation is the $1. That's what a regular fare would be. Ze mashu chayav lahachzir lo. That's what he has to return. Umasha nisiot bekartisiya yoter zolot. Why then can a person pay only 50 cents if he buys the card? Hainu mishum shehachevra notenet matana l'chol mi shekone harbei nisiot. It's because the company gives a gift. In other words, how do you look at it? The guy that bought the Ravkav, is he paying the actual retail fare for the bus ride, or is he getting it and everyone else who doesn't buy the card is paying sort of a premium on top of that? Or do you look at it as the regular fare is $1 and the company gives you a discount because you're buying so many fares? So he says you look at it as the latter, that the regular fare is $1. We'll let you ride for half price because you're buying so many fares. Kemoshe kasafti le'el b'shem mishpatei haTorah. B'chol rayosav v'duchiyosav sham benuyim al dvarav hanal kiyuyin sham. Behavi sham shekain pasagam b'shut shevet hakehati b'pshitus. And he brings that other poskim hold that way as well. And therefore, when the guy pays you back, he's got to give you the cost of a regular fare, which is $1, even though it only cost you on your card 50 cents. Amnam lefi ma shekasafti le'el de bekartisiya ein ze matana ela shahanisiot yoter zolot. He says, but that may not be the correct way to look at it. But instead, it's not that the company is giving you a present, a gift, by giving you this discount, but rather they charge less for the fare, and that's, they're not going to lose money on a fare just because you're buying a card. Yesh lomer shechayv lahachzelo k'vi hashivoy shel nesiya bezol. According to, if you look at it the former way instead of the latter way, then the guy only has to pay you the 50 cents. V'yetera mizot harei einenu haraot hayom sheyesh ka'ele shekonim nikuv minoseim acherim ba'otobus kedei l'shalem al hanesiya bezol. He says, we see today, I'm not sure if I understand what he's saying, that there are certain people who purchase from other travelers on the autobus, on the bus, kidei l'shalem al hanesiya bezol. I guess there are some people who try to, I don't know, maybe it's a consortium of people. Just see if I'm understanding this correctly. What is the word?
No, 75 cents, so, so you save 25 and I get a profit. Yeah, start your own business. Yeah. Yeah, so you stand the whole day there, telling people. Yeah.
The word is a piercing, but I think it must mean something else.
Finish my mouse. They know how to do this.
Oh, I see. In other words, I think what he's saying is a hole punch. Whereas this is talking about the days when they would punch the holes in the ticket. He says there are people who will go over to a stranger and say, "Hey, I'll give you 60 cents for if you let me punch. You give me a punch on your card." He says, "Kidei l'shalim al hanesiya bezol," so that they can pay less for it because they don't have their own card. And he says, "Ume'achar sheken nitpashet minhag." He says that's now the prevailing minhag. In other words, before a guy standing at the bus station, and he goes over to a guy and says, "Avadati et hakartis sheli, I don't have my card. Ani aten lecha shekel. I'll give you, shishima gurot if you let me punch with you. If you'll punch for me and for you." And the guy says, "Sure." So in other words, it's now become standard for people to sell hole punches on their card to other people, and that now becomes the standard fare. So that's his argument. His argument is that really the standard fare is 50 cents, not a full shekel, right? And because of that, he says, and the same thing is that everyone borrows a punch from their friends. That when it comes time to pay back, they're not going to pay you back the standard fare. They're going to pay you back the cost of the hole punch. He says, in other words, that's become standard. Va'odnir, and it would seem further, Daharei etzem zeshu hu bikesh mechavero lahalvot lo nikuv mehakartisiya velo kesef mamish liknot nesira regila. And he says, and furthermore, when I see you at the train or at the bus station, I don't ask if I can borrow a shekel from you so I can purchase a fare. I ask if I can borrow a hole punch from you. Okay, muchach de kavanato haita bedavka lilvot nikuv kidei shelo l'shalem nesiya regila val yedid kein lach soch kesef. It's because I'm not an idiot. I want us both to save money. I like the, why would you have to? Why would you lend me a shekel if you can, if it only costs you 50 agurot, if you can punch a hole? So punch a hole for me, and I'll pay you back. And therefore, it only makes sense now that this has become a widespread practice to only pay back the actual cost of the guy who's the card holder. B'shuv ra'iti sheken katav b'shut Mishnah Halachos Svara Zu. Rav Menashe Klein writes this svara. The Hela la halacha kediver Rabbeinu Hagon Shlita. Chein pasak harav Hagon Aleph Yud Barzel. Kove Share Hara. He quotes a whole bunch of other svarim, and he quotes from the Sefer Chut Shani. Shemitchila katav de yesh ladun bazeh uvesov katav de mitzad hayosher. Ein lamalva litfo mechaver yoter mimasha olto lo hanasiya. And then he says that, you know, maybe you could argue that the guy who extends himself, the lender of the bus fare, could actually charge him the full fare. But he says, but yosher, you know, to be straight and to be upright, it's better to only charge him what your out-of-pocket expense was. And therefore only pay the guy back what it actually cost you. Omnam, and then now on the other hand, Ra'iti b'sefer amudei sheish shekasav shechayv lahachzir lo k'dmei nesiya regila. This sefer also says the other opinion, and it says you got to pay. Obviously, this is really hotly debated. Yeah, and it's quite. I mean, it's fascinating because, you know, I could certainly hear that this has other applications in many other instances, but this, that everyone should be talking about the bus fare in Israel, is really fascinating. That you actually have to pay him back the full fare. The hevi raya lazeh mehad deisa b'bava mitzia, the misha gazal chavitza de tamari ubo chamishim tamar. He brings a proof from a different Gemara now in Bava Mitzia. A person steals a chavitza is pressed figs, a pressed date. Sorry, it's like dates have been pureed and made into some kind of cake, and it had 50 dates in it, and he steals that. Shem yimkerem echad echad hu yakabel chamisha. Now, apparently the dates are still intact. Sorry, it's like sort of like dates that are pressed into a container. Okay, if you sell each date separately, you'll get 50 shekels. You know, 1 shekel per date. But if you sell it all as one container full of dates, you'll get 49 shekels. The im echad gazlo chayiv l'shalim arboim vatesha kiti hashuma hazola ayin sham. So the Gemara says that if one person stole that container of dates, he pays 49 to pay back. He doesn't pay 50. Okay? Umashma meha Gemara. So the implication of the Gemara is that the im gazel tamar echad chayiv pruta, that if you steal one date, you pay the 1 shekel or the 1 pruta, whatever the denomination is. V'lo mechashvim lefi acheshbon sheyishalim ksat pachot mi pruta, and you don't reckon with the fact that, well, maybe since the cost of the entire container is 49, maybe I should only pay 4.9. What is a percentage? What would be the percentage? 1/49th. I should pay 1/49th of the amount instead of the full amount. And therefore, so too here, since I stole only one date, I pay the full amount of the date as it would be sold individually. So too, even though this guy is only out of pocket for a smaller amount, but I have to pay what I stole. Benira lechalik, he says, but it's different over there. The shiny hasam de la tamar echad yesh rak shivoy shel pruta velo pachot mikein. He says because the actual value of a singular date is one full pruta. Ve'ein metzias klal shetamar echad yimacher bepachot mipruta. And there's no way that you can ever sell a date for less than one pruta. Masha'en ken benidon didan sheyesh mitzios sha'anoshim melavim nikuvim lechavereihem o shekonim nikuv pachot mehamachir hamalei kamo shekasafti le'el. But here people do purchase punches for less than the amount, and that's become the regular standard practice. Arei shapir yesh lenikuv shivoy bifnei atzmos. So each punch of the bus card has its own value that is less than the standard fare. Ulakach yishalim lo kefi hashivoy shel nikuv v'chein matzasi lehagra Ganichovsky Zatzal Rosh Yeshivas Chabin v'kovetz Nezer HaTorah shegam dan b'didon didan b'dachet haraya hanal mechavitza detmari ayin shama shekosav bazeh. Va'ayin sham od sheherich bazeh litlos nidon didan b'machlokes hanesivas v'divrei chayim v'yesh lo palpel b'dvara v'ein kan makom laharich. I don't want to go too long, but there's so much to discuss here. Klal ha'oleh, the general rule that we see from here is Nira sheyesh l'shalim rakati shivui shel nesiya b'kartisiya shezeh yoter zol min nesiya regila. That based on all of the above, you should really just pay for the value of the card punch and not the retail value of a fare that you would pay without a card. Okay? Chediver Rabbeinu shlita ve'afal pi sheyesh cholkim b'davar lo yehei ela safek v'hamotzi mechaver olav haraya. So obviously, there's what to deliberate here, but because we could go back and forth, and the lender of the bus ride is the motzi mechavero, he's the one who wishes to extract money. So then certainly after the fact, the borrower of the bus fare could always say, "Amotzi mechavero olav haraya." There's two ways to look at this. Either the amount that I benefited without having a card, or the amount that it cost you because you have a card. And because of that, you have to bring proof that I owe you the higher amount. Otherwise, I'm just paying you the lower amount. And as Rav Sharaga himself concludes, "V'lachein lahalacha, kevin shabal hakartisiya hifsid rak nikuv shemechiro pachot mesiya regila." Since the holder of the card only lost out one hole punch or one fare on his card, chaver chayv l'shalim lo rakafi hasikum shel kartisiya. The friend who borrowed the hole punch or the fare on his electronic card only has to pay him the amount of that he spent on that fare, and not the full retail fare when you're not holding a card. Okay, end of story. What other applications would this have? I want you to think about that. Yes, go ahead, Joe. Someone mentioned this yesterday.
So basically, everybody has to do on a bus.
On a bus, but on a train, that's what I do. I mean, I was just in Israel. I don't have any of those cards, right? I just go up to the window like a real greener, and I say, "Siya Tel Aviv b'vakasha." You know, the guy charges me the regular retail rate. I pay for it on my credit card. So there still is like two different, yeah. But someone did mention that when you use your Ravkov card, you can't use it a second time for the same station. In other words, it'll lock you out for an hour or something like that. Oh, that's a Presto card. Right. Right. I see.
Yesterday about one bottle I gave to the whole company. He has, let's say I bought a case, like, because I pay $80 per bottle. I give you one to you, but if he's going to pay you back one bottle to you, it's going to cost you $20 because that's the cost if you buy individually. But if he comes back to me and say, okay, you know what, I need to buy another bottle because I need to run back, he has to pay me only 18 because that's why I pay for it. That's the same case.
That's, well, there are, you see, the problem with this is that there are so many arguments that really only fit uniquely to this case of the bus ticket. Let's say, right, we saw this case yesterday where a guy's able to buy in bulk. He buys a bunch of items on a discount because he buys them in bulk. And you have the exact item. Well, let's say it's light bulbs, right? Right. And so I go over to you, Mordechai, and I say, I noticed that you bought a whole bunch of these things in bulk. Can I buy some from you? So you do have a right to elevate the price to whatever you want if you want to make a business out of it. But let's say I borrow a bulb from you and there's no stipulation whatsoever that, you know, what I owe you. And then I say, okay, now tell me what I owe you. And because you originally told me I'll give it to you at cost. So what is cost? So cost could be what, you know, what you would normally pay if you bought this as an individual bulb, or it could be what it cost you and your out-of-pocket expense. So a lot of times, you know, this you know, you could easily resolve this issue by negotiating the price in advance. You know, if you negotiate the price in advance, so then you obviously resolve all of the controversy, right? It's only if it's after the fact that we've done a transaction without stipulating a price. And the question is, what do I owe you? Where you have to look at what is do you go according to what I would have had to pay, or do you go according to what it cost you? But usually in most transactions, you fix the price and you make before you make the transaction. Well, where would this have other applications? You know, can you think of any other situation where this would have other applications?
Bought the entire season at a discounted rate.
Right. But there's also a face value. It says like, right.
Much higher. Yeah.
The price is the same. The price is the same. The face value of the tickets is what you pay.
Or corporate rates.
All the same price.
What's that? Gym membership.
You get something like a price than you do if you go in one at a time. So, you know, when I have a game of squash with someone, but then when I remember, you know, I'll tap you in. Then, you know, you put in for maybe the $7 or $8 instead of the $10 for a one-time purchase.
Right. Okay. Okay. So normally the best thing to do would be to negotiate what the guy will owe you.
You have a rev card and put them on the bus next time.
Yeah. Right.
I mean, it's, you know.
Okay. Very good.
But that's another issue. If the fare changes and you know you lend me today and tomorrow is a different price, what price should I pay? Should I pay the new price or should I pay you what you really pay? So it gets more complicated because now if you want to get a new ticket, it's $1.20 instead of $1 or 1 shekel. So now it's like getting more complicated because you know I use it today, but tomorrow it's a different rate. So
Right. And there you could potentially, I think I know the Gemara goes into the issue of ribis when you borrow something from someone when it's at one price in the market, and then that price goes up. I know the Gemara does say that it's not ribis deoraisa, but it could potentially be ribis derabanan if you pay the guy back in cash what the current value is. So there, Let's say, because let's say he lends you a commodity like a container of dates, and you say, I'll pay you back. It's a 50 shekel container of dates. I'll pay you back the 50 shekels next week. By next week, that same container of dates is worth 60 shekel because the price of dates have gone up. So the question is it right for me to pay you back the 50 shekel, or do I have to pay you back the 60? I think the halacha, right. But so I think that halachically you're not allowed to pay back the 60. I think you have to either give him back a container of dates, or you have to pay him back 50 shekel. But it could be that it's ribis derabanan if you pay him back 60 shekel, because at the time when he gave it to you, it was only worth 50, and now you're paying him back 60. Because, well, it's only ribis if you pay him back in cash. Because at the time that the loan was made, it was a 50 shekel commodity. And now but the fact that it's gone up in price, yes, it's true. I'm only replacing for you what you would be out of pocket, but that is a ribis derabanan kind of thing. So if I replace the product, then it's not an issue.
If you lend me $100 US, and next week I have to pay
Yeah.
you want your $100 back US, so it's going to cost me maybe more or less money.
Yeah.
Yeah. Back.
So, well, okay. So when it comes to currency, this is an interesting issue. Foreign currency is no different than a container of dates. It's considered a commodity. Cash has one status and commodities have another status. So if I replace your commodity, then even though the price has gone up, I'm not in violation of ribis. So if you lent me $100 bill, I can pay you back with a different $100 bill, even though on the foreign exchange, it used to be that a $100 bill is worth 125 Canadian, and now it's worth 135 Canadian. As long as I'm replacing the commodity, the original commodity, I'm not guilty of ribis. But if last week you gave me $100 bill and it was worth 125, and I pay you back in Canadian currency 135, so then that's a problem of ribis. Okay. Yeah. It actually does. It happens once every 30 years. Yeah. Yeah. Which when I moved to Canada, Canadian dollar was on par. Yeah, it was a little bit higher, yeah. That was a long time ago. Yeah, that was before that was before the whole. Yeah, right. That's right. That's right.
But you're not making more money on it.
It doesn't matter. It's still that's why it's not ribis d'oraisa, but there's still
$100 US bill, and I say I'll give you back in Canadian, and at that time it was $1.35, and the week after now it's $1.45. And you have to still give you back that 100 US. I don't understand this to Rabban on ribis.
Yeah, because I gave you a commodity that was worth 135, and you're giving me back 145. Look, it depends, because there's an intrinsic difference between commodities and cash. A $100 bill is not cash. If it's a US $100 bill in Canada, is not viewed as cash. It's viewed as a commodity. Yeah. Okay. I'm not sure what you're referring to. Okay, we'll hold it here for today. Have a great day, everybody.